Here in this video, we will be going over everything that is happening today in our markets, as well as specifically with AMC Stock. So Tesla has not reported earnings just yet. They did not report exactly at 4 p.m. So we are waiting for those numbers. But I think Tesla's pretty simple. I think Tesla's a pretty simple read through, and how that affects the markets will be pretty simple as well. And the fact is, the stock has very low expectations. Odds are the thing's probably going higher. Now, to what degree, I think depends on guidance, on margins, on any new products that are announced, or new paths ahead for the company. The stock's already fallen 20% heading into earnings. So I'm sure that's going to be a positive factor in our markets, but there is a chance that obviously it is not as well. So keep that in mind. That's what is going to affect the markets coming tomorrow. And now, specifically, what is happening today with AMC? AMC stock is currently down about 2.5%. Now, you're actually getting some pretty good things that are happening out there. Not oil. Oil is up 1.19% today. It's not exactly great, but the dollar is actually down about a half of 1%. So that's a big factor that is positively affecting our markets today. Now, gold is down about 1%. That is also positively affecting our market. If we take a look at StockTwits today, what's actually pretty interesting is the sentiment is very bullish for AMC stock. You're looking at 90 for the sentiment gauge here over the past 24 hours. A day ago, it was actually neutral at 46. So you're seeing a massive jump in the amount of people that went from bearish that are now extremely bullish. Like extremely bullish, a rating of 90 is very high. Pretty interesting to exactly why that is happening. We'll talk about maybe why that is later on into this video, and discuss the MOAS-like event that we are all waiting for. Now, message volume today is 48, which is a little bit better than yesterday at 47, but, nothing to write home about. The participation ratio has also been getting a little bit better. That is sitting at 43. So overall, normal message volume, people extremely bullish. Now, the stock is down 2.5%. Why is that? Well, in my personal opinion, if you're thinking about AMC stock, it does offer a very attractive risk to reward. You always got to think about an investment like, what's the likelihood of this company going bankrupt? What's the likelihood of this company making me a lot of money? And what's the likelihood of this company not doing anything for a period of time? Now, I think it's pretty clear AMC is not going to be a stock that does nothing. It's typically going to be a stock that can go up a lot or even down a lot, right? That's just normally how AMC goes. You typically don't get a, sideways kind of trading stock for a period of time. You tend to make some pretty large up moves and some pretty large down moves. With that being said, I do think AMC offers a very interesting risk to reward because the stock has already fallen so much. Odds are the stock can get better from here. Like, I think there's a greater chance the stock probably rallies to, let's say, a double up from here, $8 per share, before it goes to, $2 per share, $2.10 per share. That's because I don't believe Adam Aron can raise capital again. And I think Adam Aron expressing concerns about the share price of AMC being where it is really does put it into context for a lot of investors that you will probably not be seeing dilution for a period of time. So I do think that is something that investors are looking at, saying, hey, Adam Aron's finally acknowledging AMC's low stock price. That means probably good things to come. And I think the fact that AMC has fallen from $11.50 per share down to $4.22 per share since last earnings, yes, there has been dilution, so that's the reason for it. But albeit considering heading into AMC's next earnings, you do potentially, have an optimal risk to reward situation. And some people might be trying to get ahead of that as of right now. That would make some sense to why people are, extra bullish right now on AMC. In terms of the MOS, I don't think that happens until we get the commitment to not diluting shareholders. So I think there's a couple different ways you can go about this. You can obviously continue to buy AMC. Anything you want to do is your own opinion. You could do whatever you guys want to do. What I personally plan on doing is waiting until we get that commitment not to dilute shareholders, and then go much, much larger, because that's already been tried and true. We already know what that has done for AMC in the past, and we already know what that will likely do again. Now, just for context, if Adam Aaron were to come out and give us that commitment now, the stock would probably rally to like $5 and some change. But in the grand scope of things, it's Daddy, probably better to wait for that confirmation than not. So yeah, when Adam Aaron does make the announcement, I do plan on going all in, or get into a larger position, probably a leveraged position at that as well, because that is when things are going to get very bullish, most likely for AMC stock. That's when you could see a very, very large rally in the stock itself. Until that happens, probably not going to see much of anything, but some people are going to start kind of getting ready for that. And I do think that's why the sentiment is high today, but you're still seeing a shakeout of investors as the stock has been getting absolutely pummeled. A lot of investors are not as sophisticated as maybe you are that are watching this video, that understand, what's going on and what could be coming next in terms of a commitment to not diluting shareholders. That will be coming at some point, in my personal opinion. That's the only thing Adam Aaron can do at this current moment in time to save what's left of AMC and hopefully get the stock to rally from here. So there is that. Let's go ahead and give you guys a run through of the Ortex data. I just want to be clear. That probably happens towards the middle of this year. So you could probably see a MOAS-like event towards the end of the year. Now, we also have that rule change that is now, should be in effect by now. We don't quite have the aggregated data just yet for it, which is essentially going to show us the short positions of, different stocks, right? Like AMC. We'll know who's short, what their cost to borrow fees are, what kind of collateral they're using, how long they have been short, who is facilitating this short trading. All kinds of information we are going to get eventually. I do think some of those short positions, though, that were not properly hidden, if you will, from hedge funds and institutions, they are probably, those probably starting to get represented a little bit more in the Ortex data. So I do expect the short interest is probably going to continue to rise over the next period of time here. But you do have 9.45% short interest of your float. That is up about 2%. You were at about 7.5% short interest, so now at 9.5% short interest. It's not anything too crazy, but I do think, again, that will probably continue to rise to about 20% would be my estimates. I do think the stock is 200+% sold short, but that's just my personal opinion. Now you do have $102.48 million worth of short positions currently on AMC stock. Days to cover 1.24, 23.67 million shares currently sold short. Shares out on loan 19.25 million. Cost to borrow 1.05%. Utilization of 35.19%, and a short score of 56.32 out of 100. Cost to borrow max sitting at about 2.72%. Cost to borrow minimum at 1.02%. So nothing too crazy here as far as the short interest numbers so far. But hey, we'll have to wait and see. A little bit of option activity from hedge funds and institutions today. You can see 3 orders totaling $66,000 with a positive order value of 74%. Volume today, 66.41% to the call side and 33.59% to the put side. So a little bit more bullish than bearish, but nothing that is too crazy to write home about. 10-year treasury yields basically unchanged on the day today. I think the markets are really waiting for the data that is going to be coming out. We're going to be getting some data coming out tomorrow that will be very important. As I mentioned in the last video, though, the 10 and 2-year yield curve is continuing to uninvert. You're only inverted 17 basis points now. When you actually go positive is when you really want to be on recession watch, and when the markets might start to see, you know, a little bit more downside. And actually, matter of fact, when you go positive on the yield curve, you tend to see the last kind of ditch rally in the markets, and then things start to turn down. S&P 500 is currently trading at all-time highs, though, so I don't know how much of an extended rally we might see, you know, going ahead. You just never really know, but I think the markets are pretty exhausted at this moment in time. You're going to need to see a catch-up of the broader markets, in my opinion, to get a larger kind of rally going. Because if you look at the percentage of stocks above their 50-day moving average, currently at about 66%, which is a lot lower than where you were at the end of December, when about 87% of stocks were above their 50-day moving average. So the average stock has not been doing all too great as of recently, and there's some room for your average stock to start doing much better from here. Your latest AI investor sentiment survey, I've went over this a couple times here on the channel. We will again briefly. 40.4% of investors that are bullish, 32.9% of investors that are neutral, and bearish investors at 26.8%. Your historically high for neutral investors, a little bit high on the historic side for bullish investors as well. And you might see investors still pretty bullish, but I think neutral investors are likely to pick up as well. We should be getting another one of these surveys coming out tomorrow. So that will be important to be watching for, because we want to see, did the bears go down? Did neutral investors pick up? And did bullish investors pick up at least a little bit? Because last week you saw a huge drop in the amount of bulls, and it basically went into the bear side and mostly into the neutral side. So investors starting to get pretty neutral overall on our markets, and then eventually that will change to bears, and then eventually we will see a pullback and or correction like event. Unfortunately, there is no company specific news on AMC stock. We really don't get that much news these days. Doesn't seem like a lot of people actually you know, are covering AMC on a broad basis anymore. It seems like only a couple different, you know, websites ultimately talk about AMC anymore. And I think that is to your benefit, because, you know, that just means attention is low right now. When you do start to actually see AMC stock do well and more people start to talk about AMC, that's probably when AMC stock itself starts to do well also. So the data we have coming out tomorrow comes out at 8:30 in the morning. It is going to be durable goods orders month over month for the month of December. Now we're expecting 1.1% positive. Last month you were 5.4% positive. So why this data is really important is because it affects GDP estimates. Right now, the Atlanta Fed GDP Now tracker is estimating 2.4% GDP for Q3. The higher that stays for longer, the more likely we have a soft landing and ultimately avoid a recession. So that's why the data is going to be important. Spending, consumer spending, durable goods orders, retail sales, those kind of data points are about 70 to 73% of GDP. So if you do see, let's say, durable goods orders come in really good, odds are GDP is going to be really good as well. If it comes in really bad, odds are GDP is not going to be so great. That's why the markets will pay attention to that. That does come out at 8:30 in the morning tomorrow. You will also get the GDP growth rate quarter over quarter advanced data for Q4. So we are going to get the number in which, you know, our first estimate for GDP for Q4. Estimates currently are at about 2%. So on the lower side as far as what the Atlanta Fed is currently pricing in, but still 2%, very respectable overall number. And if it came out at 2%, that would probably be seen as a really good thing nonetheless. So definitely be on the lookout for that. A lot of other data that goes along with it. Initial jobless claims, GDP price index, durable goods orders excluding transportation, core PCE quarter over quarter advanced data for Q4, GDP sales advanced for Q4, real consumer spending, PCE prices, new home sales, all kinds of different things. Then you will get the Kansas Fed Manufacturing Index. You're expecting this to absolutely plummet to -21 from -4 last month. So if that also happens, that would be, well, bad news. So let me know what you think about that down below in the comment section. I would love your opinions on this data. Stocko tracker data, you can see about 8,600 calls currently in the money. Out the money calls at about 74,000. Nothing is really changing here. You're not seeing people buying more, selling, a bunch in quantity. You're not seeing a lot of activity at all in the options market right now, but there is a sizable amount of options in total, so you can see a pretty aggressive move towards the end of this week if you do see a pretty aggressive move in the markets. And I think a lot of that's going to come down to Tesla specifically, and what is happening in that regard. If Tesla has good earnings, well, the markets are probably going to be good. It wouldn't surprise me if AMC stock gets a bounce as well, because Tesla is an interest rate sensitive name. So AMC, also an interest rate sensitive name. Could it bounce? Of course it could bounce, and cause AMC to bounce as well. But that obviously does not have to be the case, and that is obviously not a guarantee, okay? So there you have that. AMC stock still down about 2%. It's pretty pinned down here today, down 2%. RSI at 26.19, so definitely on the oversold side. And AMC stock at $4.23.5 per share. An optimal risk to reward situation, but I don't think we can expect much as far as a rally, a Moas-like event, until you actually do see, a commitment not to dilute shareholders. So hopefully that does come at some point. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. When is that going to happen? I'm more optimistic towards the second half of this year, as Adam Aron finally comes to the realization they have no choice. They have to give us a commitment not to dilute shareholders. So you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.